This season has been quite a dry season, but surprisingly one of the best seasons this year. And since Season of the Witch is now coming to an end, it's time as always to conclude our build playlist for this season. With a new dungeon launching next season for Season of the Wish, it's time to break down our best rated builds over the season to just 3. So in this video we'll be looking at the top 3 builds overall for Season 22 for which you should be using in Season 23, the final season of Destiny 2 Lightfall. As always, the builds shown here are what I personally think are the best from Season of the Witch, in order and for endgame PvE. All of the builds listed are optimised for usage next season, or for any season that you wanted to use them in, as they won't rely on specific seasonal mods and perks, so you can make those slight adjustments to slot on any new perks you'll get through your seasonal artifact. And if there are any major changes that affect the base build, such as an exotic or subclass ability reworks, I'll be sure to work around those changes so that these builds can remain top tier for the next season ahead. Now before we start, this video is sponsored by Instant Gaming. They offer cheaper games on all platforms for up to 90% off, and using my link down below, you'll be able to get your hands on some amazing deals they have to offer, as well as being able to join their free monthly giveaway for a chance to win any game of your choice. So be sure to check them out later, but for now, be sure to rate, comment, subscribe and share, and now let's start our top 3. Now firstly, before we start, if you like one of these builds shown, or you would like a full in-depth build setup guide for each during Season 22, then I will leave a card on screen to those related builds so that you can use it for the remainder of this season. Cards should start popping up on screen at the start of each showcase to take you to those videos that do use seasonal mods from Season 22. So if you want to maximise the build's efficiency currently for Season of the Witch, you can do so by going to those videos separately linked, as they do have a few slight changes. Now starting off in third place, we have the Banner of War Titan Strand build. Now Strand Titans have had some good days with infinite suspending, but this season we got the Banner of War aspect, which changes this build entirely, and what makes this build so good is that you're not only getting a damage buff, but you're also getting health back too. And in most cases, this is constant, meaning that those buffs are always going to be active with almost a 100% uptime while constantly in combat, and it's just amazing for all types of content, whether that's a raid, a dungeon, a nightfall, or even events like Festival of the Lost. This is more of a fun build though, rather than a must-use build for things like a GM. So use it where you feel it's appropriate, because although you'll still use this build as a source of DPS, you'll also be using it not just as a melee and sword build, but as a run and gun build, just using your weapons to keep the Banner of War stacks going at all times. So having no melee charge is fine, just save it for when you need it for some serious damage dealing. But the way you'll use this build is you'll start by using your first of 3 melee charges to activate the Banner of War. From here you'll then kill stuff with tangles, your weapons, your abilities, and just basically anything. And as long as you keep killing stuff, you'll keep buffing up that Banner of War up to a maximum of 4 stacks, while extending the timer as well. When it comes to DPS for a boss, champion, or anything that has a lot of health, you'll then run in and shotgun the enemy, ideally hitting every bullet on them, using a 1-2 punch shotgun, and then melee them right afterwards. And this in most cases will deal some serious damage to the point that after using all 3 charges with a maxed out Banner of War buff, the boss or champion should be pretty much dead, depending on how much health they actually have. So for this build, you're going to want a 1-2 punch shotgun. You can use craftable ones like the Wastelander, which I'm using, but there are other options too, like the Swordbreaker from Crota's End, which is free for everyone, so just get the 5 patterns for the weapon to then craft it. But if you wanted to make this build the best it can possibly be, run a sword as well for DPS when you don't have the melee charge ready, as well as a primary weapon that's good for killing adds fast, like the Callus Mini Tool. In the Strand subclass, I'm using the Grapple Grenade mostly because it's just fun to use, but for the aspects, we have Into the Fray so that we can get Woven Mail, and Woven Mail will give us our melee back faster. Then the second aspect is Banner of War, so that defeating targets with our melee, finisher or sword will give us Banner of War, and then further kills will increase the stacks and timer, giving us health and increasing our melees and swords damage. Pretty OP, not gonna lie, so expect a nerf sometime. For fragments, you want Thread of Generation, Thread of Fury, Thread of Warding, and Thread of Transmutation. These are just gonna help you with Woven Mail more to ensure that you get that buff as much as possible. For mods, I've got 2 ammo finders and a siphon in the helmet. You kind of want to have a siphon mod that matches your primary weapon though to generate more orbs. But for the arms, we have a heavy-handed and 2 impact inductions. Chest, we have our damage resist mods. Change these to suit the activity that you're playing. But legs, we got a bunch of cooldown mods for our melee ability, and then in the class armor we're using more cooldown mods. Just prioritize everything towards getting the melee back quicker. So that will also mean getting strength to 100 if you can, but I prefer to have discipline and resilience at 100. But that would be your triple 100 build right there. So here's a reminder of the mods we use for this build, and if you plan on using this for the remainder of season 22, these are the artifact perks that you're going to want to use. But overall, a pretty nice build to have for your Titan. Moving on to number 2, we have the Warlock solo build. Now Warlocks haven't been great in terms of the amount of good builds that are available for that class lately, but this build is one build that I really like to use in GMs because it just puts endgame PvE into easy mode. So with this build you're going to be able to spam down wells one after another and basically just sit in the well all the time killing stuff, as long as you have a good amount of ads around to kill. And this build does perform a lot better when you have another teammate run the exact same setup, but in most cases you're always going to have a well to place down and sit in when it comes to using this build in endgame content like a Grandmaster Knight. Now the way you'll use this build is you'll start by placing down a well of Radiance, you'll then get kills while inside the well to generate super energy up to 50%, and then just get kills, grenade kills and pick up orbs to top off the rest of that super energy, and it's pretty much just that simple. Now this isn't a build I'd run solo, so you are better off running this build with a team so that you can get that remaining super energy that you need to place down the next well before the previous one is expired. So to set up this build, you're going to want to use the Phoenix Protocol Exotic Armor. This will allow kills and assists you make while standing in the Well of Radiance to return super energy. This will cap out at 50% though, so run a Well of Radiance super in the Dawnblade solo subclass, because you will need that on. For the abilities, we have the Healing Rift, always useful, a Celestial Fire melee, my personal preference, and then a Fusion Grenade because they're just too good not to use. It's also a great source of extra DPS anyway. For the aspects, you want Touch of Flame, so that the Fusion Grenade explodes twice, and then the second aspect I'm using is just Icarus Dash, but this is optional, so you don't need to use this. As for the fragments, you want Ember of Resolve to get health on grenade kills, Ember of Char for extra scorching effects, Ember of Blistering for more grenade energy, and Ember of Eruption for bigger ignition effects. For your triple 100 stats, go with Resilience, Recovery and Discipline for PvE. Even though we are a faster supers build, Intellect in my opinion is just a waste of stats. You can use a Bad Juju if you want a bit of extra super energy, but with this build setup that we have, it's hardly going to make a difference. As for mods though, you want 2 Ashes to Assets and a Cypher mod in the helmet. These you 100% want on. Arms, you want 2 grenade kickstarts and an impact induction. Again, you kinda want these on. Chest armor, you can do what you want, but preferably have damage resist mods on. Legs, you want 2 innovations to reduce the grenade cooldown. And then in the class, you want a distribution and 2 bomber mods. And with this setup the way it is, you are gonna get supers like there's no tomorrow when playing endgame content with a team. So definitely a good build for Warlocks to have ready for next season. But as always guys, here is the artifact setup for season 22 as usual if you plan on using the build right now before November 28th. Now in first place, being one of the best builds in the game that works for not just one season, but for every season in the game regardless of changes, is the Hunter Void Infinite Invis build. Now what makes this build so special is that this single build can be used in any activity in the game, whether that's a standard strike, a Grandmaster Nightfall, a raid, or a master activity solo, because using this build you'll be able to make minor adjustments to suit not only the activity, but your playstyle too. You can use Orpheus Rig for faster supers, exotics like 6 Coyote, Graviton, Frosties, and stuff like that for a 100% uptime on invisibility, or Gyrfalcons to completely obliterate everything in your path. Now I tend to choose Gyrfalcons for everything mostly except GMs, because it just wrecks everything. You're going to get Infinite Invisibility and volatile rounds chaining between them both on kills, faster grenades, you're going to have devour so every single kill will restore your health, while also going invisible at the same time, and basically you're just pretty much an unkillable god. Now sometimes you may die, that's just life, but if you want a top tier build that's one of the best for everything, this is the one. So the way you'll use this build is first go invisible by dodging, and then come out of invis and kill 2 enemies to generate an orb of power and a void breach, while also getting volatile rounds to then go back to being invisible again. You then pick up those breaches and orbs to get more ability energy and devour, and then just repeat the process. And whether you're using a heavy void machine gun or just a standard void primary weapon, it will still do the job just fine. Just make sure you are running void weapons that can kill ads quickly so that you you can keep the build loop consistent. So for the setup for this one, I'm running the Gyrfalcons because this will give our weapons volatile rounds after you come out from being invisible, and this will flow nicely with the way we have the build set up to make sure that we're always going to have both the volatile rounds and the invis. So for the subclass aspects, you want Stylish Executioner, so defeating a volatile target will make us invisible, and Vanishing Step to get that first invisibility effect by dodging. For the fragments, you want Echo of Cessation for void breaches, Echo of Starvation to get devour, Echo of Persistence so the effects last longer, and then the last fragment I'm just running is Echo of Dilation so that I can get my stats to 100, which I'm just too short of my triple 100, but if you can get 100 mobility, resilience and intellect, then that is what you'll want for your triple 100 build. As for the other subclass abilities, we have the Deadfall Super, a Gambler's Dodge, Snare Bomb and a Vortex Grenade. For mods, we have a Void Siphon and 2 Heavy Ammo Finders in the helmet, a Void Loader and 2 Ballstring Detonations in the arms, damage resist mods in the chest which you can use whichever you prefer. For the legs, you want a Void Scavenger and some cooldown mods, and then for the class itself, we have 2 utility kickstart mods. By far one of the best builds in Destiny 2 still, and I strongly recommend you set this one up. But if you are still using this build during Season of the Witch, then here is the artifact setup for that for Season 22. So guys, these are your top 3 builds this season, and the top 3 builds to use in Season 23 or Season of the Wish. As always, like all my top 3 videos, if you do want to see the full in-depth setup for each, you can view the cards on screen or links in the description. But for now, give these a try and be sure to stick around for the new season, because I will be covering all the best latest builds out, updated for the new season. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys soon for the new Season 23 playlist. Peace out guys.